All right. So welcome to our session, the Black Hat NOC, greatest hits and holy
Cows?
cows. All right. So who are we? My name is Neil Wyler. In the community, I'm better known as Grifter. By day, I'm a principal threat hunter for RSA. But by night, I run all the technical operations for the Black Hat security briefings with this guy here.
I am Bart Stump. I've been doing this now about 11 years. By night, doing this all with Black Hat. By day, I am a senior security consultant with Optiv.
All right, so we're just going to roll into it.
So I think a lot of this, you guys, anybody that's seen our other talks, you'll be familiar with a lot of this. We'll get through talking about who the partners are with us in the NOC and then get into some fun story time. So with us now in the NOC and helping at all of these shows, Palo Alto provides firewalls and our core infrastructure, RSA for monitoring, all of our packet and log collection. Cisco provides us with OpenDNS as well as the sandboxing. Our I just forgot the name.
ThreatGrid.
ThreatGrid, thank you. CenturyLink provides our bandwidth in Vegas. Ruckus provides all of our wireless as well as switching. And then Gigamon, our taps to feed all of our tools with the interesting traffic that you guys would normally provide us. So
Yeah. So I think, I left the one with CenturyLink on there because I figured this was all of the
Vegas.
partners. Yeah, this is Vegas, right? So this is normally who would be serving up your delicious packets. Another thing too, RSA provides endpoint for our registration machines, and then also our identity and access management solution as well. So we'll get into why we have these different technologies here shortly. But that makes up the team, right? The broader team. But this is the actual team, right? So this is from 2019. This is the U.S. Team. So this is the Vegas show. You can see it's a pretty big group. It's made up of primarily most of our friends. And then the folks that the partners send. They're industry professionals, they're security or network professionals, and they take their vacation to come and hang out with us and set up the NOC. Normally it's not as bright as you see there in the picture. The lights are usually turned down. That's how we like it. But that's the crew. So we have our NOC partners and then the extended NOC family. So that's what makes up the U.S. team. You can see there's a bit of a difference between the U.S. show and what an international show looks like. So this is the team from the 2019 Europe show. So was that December?
December.
That seems like so long ago.
It was a world ago.
Yeah. But that you can see that the team is much smaller. It is, again, made up of a couple of core folks from the NOC team and then some folks that the NOC partners send as well. And they really are our partners. This is not something where these individuals have sponsored the NOC and so they've paid X amount of money to have their equipment in there. It's genuinely like a discussion that myself and Bart and another one of our buddies, Steve Fink, have where we discuss like what's the right technology, have things changed, what has our satisfaction been with the different...
Our needs change from year to year, show to show as well. So there's different things, and it's a true procurement process with those partners.
Yeah, and it's great. Like we have been fortunate enough that anyone that we have approached to try to partner with us has been very, very receptive to coming in and being part of the NOC team and providing not only equipment or software, but also folks, their A-team folks to back it up. So you saw the giant crew here for the U.S. show, and then now our smaller crew here for international. And like I said, this is the Europe this year, but it mirrors the same amount of folks for the Asia show in Singapore as well.
So much like the teams between the U.S. and the international show, the architecture differs quite a bit, obviously, and you guys can imagine that has a lot to do with people and bandwidth, obviously, going on at that point. So in Vegas, we have quite a bit more. So Palo Alto provides some very large firewalls, excuse me, in the 5000 series that we use in an HA pair. Gigamon taps traffic on both sides in and out that we use, again, for monitoring and feeding those monitoring tools. Ruckus provides all of our switching as well as access points throughout the venue. And Vegas is unique in the way that we replace pretty much everything except the cables that Mandalay Bay has. So we put in distribution switches as well as the core switches down in the MDF at that point. Again, feeding RSA, one of the big tools that we use from them is NetWitness. But again, as Grifter mentioned, we do use them on the endpoints as well as identity and access management for accessing those tools for a true authorization of users. And we can get into that a little bit more as well as to why that may have evolved.
Change control.
It happens to the best of us. Again, here, CenturyLink in Vegas provides us two 10 gig circuits. Last year, you guys did not completely blow that out, but we won't get the chance this year, and hopefully we'll see some.
Yeah, it doesn't look like they're going to hit those numbers this year either.
You guys are terrible. Try harder. Who did I miss? We got Ruckus, Cisco again, feeding into ThreatGrid as well as OpenDNS. So we see all those DNS requests as well as detonating any type of malicious attachment, package, anything. Yeah. You guys are crazy.
Basically, anything that we see that could potentially, we think, host malware, we'll take that, drop it in there, see what it does, right? So, this is the architecture.
I saw that you still have this in there. He always gives me a hard time. As you could see with the U.S. show in Vegas, it's much more involved, much more architecturally
look at that.
diverse. Maybe
so
you'd say
it
looks cuter. It looks better. It genuinely pretty flat in some of the international shows, and then between time and all that, I have not made an architecture for those, and he gives me a hard time. So you get to see this if you came to Singapore or London. It's beautiful. Genuinely, if you look at the U.S. architecture, again, it's just flatten it and lessen it out a little bit. And then the difference there, though, in some cases why it doesn't look as good, we also don't necessarily replace all the distribution switches at each show that we go to. So there are some VLANings on their backbones, etc. So more just not as intriguing. So imagine it just shrunk a little bit.
Yeah, you'll get an idea here in a second when we talk about the gear.
So again, talking about specifically what we had in Vegas, here's exact devices, the amount of access points, switches, again, what we get from Cisco, Palo bringing two 5260s and a M200, which is your management box to run.
Which honestly, we probably would have mirrored this year as well. I don't think there's probably a lot of changes that we would have.
I don't think there would have been many changes at all either. It was all about the same. We didn't have any real architecture ideas, nothing that failed on us, nothing crazy. We're always trying new tools and different monitoring stuff, but outside of that, this genuinely would have stayed probably right where it is.
Yeah, I mean, you can see like that. There's quite a bit of stuff that gets sent. It used to be, all of our own gear that we brought, and when we brought in the partners and stuff, they were just, like I said before, super, super supportive. So we just get like pallets, pallets of gear.
In a lot of ways, though, too, it helps. So they send their A teams, and we've asked that they provide that professional aspect and people that, pros on their equipment. It's usually a lot easier for them to do some of those things with the bigger equipment, with the other pallets worth of devices that we're trying to do. And again, we'll get into how these guys partner quite a bit in the evolution of things, but it helps them on their equipment as well. There are plenty of things that are found at Black Hat and features that have come to grow because of the things that we've done with these partners and stuff. So benefits all of us for sure.
Yeah.
So, what was this? Singapore? Do you remember off the top of your head? They're about the same. Again, it's not too big different between London and Singapore, but as you can see, again, pretty much just less of what we had. So, a few less APs, as you can see. We don't have switches that we're replacing the walls. The distribution switches, we go from the 5000 series down to 3000 series with Palo Alto. And then for the most part, it's just less storage for NetWitness. So, again, not as many packets, not as much to look through there. But for the most part, just a little bit less. Yeah. A little less bandwidth as well. But
I like there, too. I think maybe this was Asia show because the access points went from 22 to 21 because during setup,
we broke one.
One of them got smashed. So,
we had brought 22, but it didn't happen.
Yeah, sometimes, you gotta do it live, right? So, Bart mentioned like the architecture and how we're feeding a bunch of different tools, and you saw the list of the gear there and everything that we're working with. We also have a significant amount of dashboards in the NOC. Now, it looks like a NOC would look, right? That darkened room, war game style, bunch of large displays with all kinds of shiny things on them.
Nerds sleeping under the table.
Yeah, that's how we roll. But that, like, the reality is the dashboards that we have up are actually useful to us. We populate them with things that we need to know about the network. You saw there in the center, that one's always very shiny. We put up on a projector in the corner. It gets a lot of attention. That tool is called OIP, and OIP, what it's doing essentially is looking at the most active hosts on the network and how they're communicating with each other. Like TCP is in green. Here, I'll go back and start the video again. So. TCP is green, UDP is red, ICMP is white. And so if we see somebody do something like a scan, there'll be a large amount of white, like traffic just boom, 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 flying out. Or
the size of the blob is also representative of the size of the packet. So there's some interesting stuff to see that and kind of understand, again, if it's a scan as opposed to a download/upload, etc. You're going to see, you would see that. So it's very visually helpful.
Yeah. So for us, like, we'll see like a really this giant like lightsaber bar come up on the on OIP, and we're like, whoa, like, what is that? Like, what's all that traffic? And because we can see what the hosts are or the IP addresses are that are associated with that, we then just pivot over to NetWitness. We throw those in and we say, what kind of traffic is being passed there? Is it something we care about? If we do see scanning or whatever, is this legitimate to like a classroom activity, or is it somebody trying to hit other individuals on the network? Again, I'm punching the microphone here. It's just a quick visual representation of us of what's taking place on the network. The dashboards on the side are, from RSA and Palo Alto, and they populate a host of different things that we might be interested, like most active users, what the most active countries are, the types of traffic that are being passed.
And again, that changes from show to show too. It's not,
sure.
They're not canned. Depending on what we're looking for, what we've seen, etc. Those will morph and change, obviously, from show to show and even day to day.
Day to day, yeah. Like, we just walk into the NOC in the morning, we just flip a table. We're like, you give me something fresh.
Somebody's got to do it.
This is ridiculous. No. But it is nice to be able to have that on the fly changes, or we'll say like, you know what, we really didn't gain a lot of intel out of that yesterday. Let's see, can we replace that with something else? And so just like any normal SOC or NOC would be, we adapt to whatever it is that is necessary for our needs. So these are more dashboards. So the Cisco ThreatGrid dashboard, what you can see up there, it looks like a bar across where a lot of them are black. Is actually virtual machines that kick off each time that we submit a piece of malware to it. So it goes into a sandbox, or as they term it, a glove box, so that you can actually, like the CDC does, where you get in there and work with a virus with your hands and not infect yourself. That's what it's doing, is kicking those off. And
you can manipulate that to your extent that you can, as a glove box as opposed to just a sandbox, you can reach in there and play with it, so you can interact with that those virtual machines and that malware.
Yeah, it's nice. And then the bottom right there is Threat Connect, which is our new SOAR solution that we've been using just for the last year. And we're still
already growing.
Yeah, and then for us, like, because it's a new tool for us, we're still kind of like working out like what the benefits are that we get from this or that or whatever, and that will continue to change over time.
How can it provide more data, etc.?
Yeah.
There's the darkness.
Yes, there's that darkness we were talking about. Makes for excellent photos. But the evolution of the NOC as a whole. So my first show, what year is this? So I think this is my 18th
2020.
year.
How could you forget?
So it's 2020. Yeah, maybe because I want to forget. So my first show was the Windows show. We used to do a Windows show up in Seattle.
Still hear that. It's just weird.
I know, it's crazy, but it is true. But the first U.S. show that I did was 2003 in Las Vegas. And that is the extent of what the NOC looked like in the upper left there. So that's Deadhead, and he is configuring some Cisco access points that you can see have the Orinoco cards that slot into the top. And then we would literally take those and then tape antennas like up onto different pillars around Caesar's Palace. It was crazy. And then the entirety of the infrastructure is on the table in the bottom left, where you see a Cisco 2600 with a couple of little Netgear silver switches on it. We were
Defense in depth.
So high tech. But I'll explain why we went from that to what you see on the right, which is the insanity that is the current NOC. The two individuals there, again, Deadhead in the top, and that's Com4 down on the bottom. They pretty much made up the team. It was me, 2 to 3 other folks, and we just did it. Now you have the team on the right, which is, I don't even know what we're up to now. Is it like,
yeah, I mean, between our guys, 21-ish, and then 20, and then their teams, 30, 40 other vendor folks. So yeah, we're talking 75 people total that rotate through the NOC in a given
gross
U.S. show. Yeah, it is kind of
gross.
We miss it though already.
I do miss it. All right, so so you can see that's what the what it evolved from was essentially that on the left with a couple of switches, a single router, some Cisco access points with antennas taped to the wall to what we have on the right, and the insane scale that's gone to now. But what you're looking at on the left, the U.S. show was about approximately 1,200 people, I think, at the time, and now last year was like 20,000. So
yeah, the international shows are bigger than that at this
yeah,
point.
Yeah, the international
double,
shows, which used to be 200 to 300
right.
Attendees, now we're even
thousand.
more than that, a couple thousand. So so I guess let's talk about that evolution. Like, how did we end up going from that tiny little couple of things to what we have today?
You ever notice he doesn't actually evolve?
I know the GIF actually messes with me a little bit, if I'm honest, because you really want it to just like, if he could just
hard to keep
Gyarados it up, that would be
try
great.
it out.
But yeah, so we had to evolve as the needs of the network changed, but the biggest need initially was just stability, right? So the network at Black Hat would go down all the time. It was, up approximately 50% of the time in previous shows. When I came on at that US show, that was my first time running the network, myself with a couple of friends, and our goal was just to keep the network up. At one point, and we did that. We were successful. We kept the network up for 100% of the time, 99% of the time, 98%. I don't know what 15 minutes it went down. It went down for 15 minutes.
You gotta do the math on that.
And here's why. So those Cisco access points that I talked about, we... apparently when they were, I was wandering around talking to the different trainers and stuff. I'm poking my heads in classrooms. I knew the network went down. We cycled them. Everything came up fine. We're like, oh, that was weird. Walked into a class, talked to the trainer, and he said, hey, did the network go down before? And I was like, oh yeah, it did. I'm really sorry about that. We got everything back up. It seems to be good. And he's like, oh yeah, I was showing the class this new vulnerability I just found. It's unpatched, oh days. And I'm like, well, thanks, dude. That's my live production network. He just blew off, the face of the earth as a live demo. But that's old school Black Hat.
Those are the days of just turning it off and turning it back on again.
Yeah,
too, so
totally.
So stability was one of the biggest reasons, and still today that's probably one of our biggest concerns.
Huge.
Obviously, as attendees coming for trainings is probably our biggest stability concern with students doing labs, etc. Cloud labs, a lot of trainers have moved all of their labs and exploitations, etc., to cloud. So that was kind of a big shift for us, and we worked with a lot of those trainers when that shift really started. But again, stability is probably our biggest concern these days for those reasons. Shifting from there, security and segmentation, because of some of the stories that Grifter told, obviously were a big deal to kind of get into outside of the Cisco APs. And again, the evolution of where it's really come, even since I was around, has been tenfold. So security starting, obviously, so we don't have classes hacking other classes where, whether intentionally or unintentionally, obviously we don't want anybody to ruin anyone else's experience because they don't know what they're doing or because they do know what they're doing.
It was intentional.
It was very intentional in that case. But I can tell you there have been plenty that were unintentional as well. Just the shiny new toy, you don't necessarily know fully what you're doing. Things have happened.
Yeah.
Segmentation obviously plays into that. A lot of the network architecture tools that we've had, the way that we've locked down and even architected the shows from year to year has changed to try and grow with that. And obviously, with the equipment that we've had, that changing from initially not having all the distribution switches and having control from end to end, we kind of had to make some sacrifices, if you will, as far as the architecture and security at that point. That's grown, and obviously between Ruckus being able to provide the switching, access points, the security from Palo Alto and everything else, those have really been hammered home, I feel like, and we're in a pretty good place today with what we're dealing with, stability, security, and segmentation wise. And I'll let Grifter dig into some of the other things that we've.
So, that's the thing. Like, once we have stuff where it's stable, it's secure, everybody's not attacking each other, at least as frequently, or accidentally, then, we're like, well, we want to gain some additional knowledge about what's taking place on the network. Like, what is actually, like, you read all these articles as any large conference starts to approach, where it's like, oh, here's how you should behave when you're on this type of network, or, oh, should you even get on the Black Hat network? I've written one of those articles myself, where it's like, is it actually that bad? Like, what is genuinely going on? If you're not currently experiencing an attack, is it just because you're not detecting it, or is it because it's not happening? So we wanted to go look, and that's where we started to decide, okay, well, we want operational intelligence, like active, like what's taking place. So that's when we reached out to RSA and brought well, they weren't the first ones. I won't name names for folks who we used to be there before. Right?
And that one didn't really grow anywhere.
But we wanted to gain some additional, knowledge about the network. And so what RSA brought to the table for us was the ability to capture all the logs from all the different devices that we had, capture raw packets so that we could rebuild sessions and see what was actually taking place. And then, have a real idea about, is this actually one of the most dangerous networks in the world to be on? And so we could rebuild what attacks were taking place and start to carve out, is this bad, like actual bad, or is this just like normal bad,
good bad,
Black Hat bad, right? on a
typical bad,
on a regular day at Black Hat, the types of stuff that you would see on a normal day at Black Hat is the things that would turn some analysts, or CISOs hair white in any other organization.
Week upside down. Would not be fun.
So we had to say, like, okay, well, let's find out what's actually bad and what isn't. And we find some interesting stuff doing that as well. Now, when we were doing that hunting, there were times where we would find, binaries or what looked like potential malware, and we didn't have at the time the ability to throw it in a sandbox and see what it did. So we were like, oh, we should add that. And we had a friend, a relationship from the past, in Jessica Bear from Cisco, who, in talking to her, we were like, hey, it would be cool if you guys could come. They were like, great, we'd love to come. And now we had ThreatGrid in the NOC as well. And I'll let Bart explain where the IAM portion of this comes into our evolution.
So we're not throwing anybody under the bus, as we said today. However, there was definitely an incident in the past where we, with another partner, had basically come back in the morning after some issues, and there was some security concerns by said partner and those people that were there, that there was some firmware changes made to the equipment overnight.
With the best intentions.
It was absolutely somebody that was trying to do right, but it pretty much bricked all of those access points, and it took us hours, I think. It was a couple hours like in the morning to get the network back up and running, basically. So that was not a fun morning, and that was one of the aha moments that we needed to be able to have control of that. Everybody was basically using the same admin account, so not that we would have necessarily stopped it, but we would have known about it and could have taken that responsibility. It's not on somebody else. If we go through that and make that decision, I can tell you we probably wouldn't have right before class started. It would be an end of the day type of thing. But that was definitely a big piece to us to be able to keep that control, make sure that any changes that were being made anywhere were at least rubber stamped, if nothing else, by Grifter, Fink, and I. So it has definitely helped. I can say that there are times that it's not the most convenient thing, which I mean is typical in any typical of security, typical of anything that you are dealing with in that environment in a normal world.
I hate this.
But we've made it work, and we've done what we had to do so that we can control that, and at least, again, if nothing else, just take the responsibility. If we do it, then we do it, and we'll take responsibility for that. But when you feel like you're cleaning up somebody else's mess, it was definitely a frustrating afternoon.
It was the longest outage that we've ever had, and up to that point, I can't remember how many years it was, but I had been doing it over a decade, and Bart had been doing it multiple years as well. So for us, it was a big hit to our egos, I guess, to just be like, oh, like we fell on our faces there. Let's immediately solve it with technology, and then we threw it. Now it's fixed. But yeah, and then the endpoint decision was.
That was much more recent, I would say, and that kind of goes hand in hand with decryption and scaring people with what we're talking about. So I would say, and we'll just kind of get that out of the way real quick, so endpoint and decryption are both on our registration machines. So basically what that was intended for was those are the only machines that we, quote-unquote, control that are within our purview. Obviously, if you guys come onto the network, we're not looking to man in the middle anything. We've told you that will never happen under our watch, and that stands today. Endpoint, obviously, we're not pushing anything to your devices there. So endpoint and decryption are specifically that. Again, we've talked about it, registration really kind of being, that's our information as well as yours. That's kind of the keys to the kingdom that we'll make sure that we protect from you guys, for you guys, as well as, for us and obviously the organization.
He said from you guys.
From you guys. From and for. I mean, it's the same thing.
There.
Both of you. And then, so the endpoint protection is literally just that. So we monitor typical changes. We can lock down that endpoint, make sure that nobody's modifying what's there for protection of those systems. Obviously, we can see all that, and everything's phoning home that way. Then decryption is the same as well, but we are doing it only from the registration to the backend database to basically make sure that nothing was injected or anything else happened or added that we couldn't see because of that. So now we have full visibility into the actual registration process and can see encrypted, decrypted, whether anything bad has happened. So that's really kind of grown, and again, we've gotten a tighter grip around registration, we feel like, and that's certainly come over the years, again, with the tools that have become available to us as well. So that took some time. You want to talk about automation?
Sure. So the automation piece comes from, I guess, some of the things that we started discovering once we introduced the hunting ability, like looking through logs, looking through the packets and that kind of thing. We started to notice command and control traffic that would immediately start when devices were added to the network. We see a lot of clear text stuff still on the network. I say a lot, we'll get into that a little bit more in a bit, but still too much, I guess is what I should say. So we see a lot of clear text emails and things going back and forth. We, with the rise of cryptocurrencies and wherever we saw crypto mining coming from different devices. And what we used to do in the past as we discovered these things was we would literally hoof it over to a classroom. Now, because of the way that the network is segmented, we know this traffic's coming from this classroom, this traffic's coming from this classroom, or it's coming from this access point, those type of things. So we would isolate it to a particular class, see if the attack or that traffic was something that was normal, considered normal for that class. If it looked like it was out of the ordinary, then we would just say, all right, well, let's head down there and go see if we can talk to somebody. And then we would go into the class and say, hey, whoever has IP address, blah, 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 can we talk to you for a second? And they would be like, oh, it's the NOC guys, and they would make that walk of shame to the back of the class so that we could talk to them and say, hey, we're seeing this from your device. A lot of the times we get a no, you're not, or that's not possible, or I'm doing this, or I'm doing that, and we have to prove it with data, but, PCAPer didn't happen.
Sold.
We got the PCAP, so we can show you exactly where it's happening. So the scale, again, as the show scaled and the number of those types of incidents increased, it wasn't possible for us to constantly be leaving the NOC and running around to classrooms trying to tell people oh, you're got this command and control traffic. Oh, it looks like you have this malware. Oh, it looks like, your VPN is configured incorrectly, that kind of thing. And so
another piece of that really quick was that we obviously don't know where you're at in briefings, so we have more people at that point. So to be able to provide that same information to a briefings attendee that may have shown up and had Command and control conquer. Command and control. I like it.
We just
Command and
remastered
control
it.
on your
We've been playing it
machine.
a lot.
We wouldn't be able to track you down and basically give you that information. So it was more of a safety for you guys, but that kind of evolved the scale and being able to walk to every classroom, but B as well telling you during briefings.
So here's how we did that, right? We said, okay, if we can't run to every class, like let's at least find a way to deliver a message to these individuals so that they can see something. And in the briefings, like you said, you could track them down to an access point, but then you run out in the hallway, crowded hallway, hey! Like it doesn't work. So what we ended up doing was saying, okay, if we see whatever. That's like, we're done. If we see clear text account creds, we see something that we can confirm looks like command control or malware, or crypto mining, what we're going to do is say, all right, we've seen this traffic. We identify it in the packet capture. We gain additional intelligence about it from, the firewall and, our core infrastructure. We pull all that together. We say, yes, this looks, in fact, like it is something that could potentially be bad. It then sends Bart and I an email that says, we saw this thing. It looks bad. Do you agree that we should go ahead and send them a captive portal?
And this was basically, again, us taking that responsibility so that we're not getting false positives throwing out there to everybody, or for whatever reason that we're seeing. It was a piece to be able to stop it without just being automated. So we're taking control of that.
Giving control to the machines, just like
complete control. So we still go through, and just a quick review of that. We get an email and basically can hit accept, and this has all been automated, obviously, through that back end with Threat Connect, RSA, Palo Alto, and ThreatGrid. In some cases, are all talking to each other throughout this process, right? So that you can see that. So captive portal, I think, is also kind of a scary word for some people. Yeah. Quick explanation on that is basically you would have to hit a unencrypted website so that we can even insert at that point. We're not man-in-the-middling anything. And there is nothing for you to enter other than hit continue, basically, to acknowledge it. As you can see, it's basically us just letting you know what we saw and, hey, come talk to us
if you want more context.
Want some information.
Yeah.
And we can give you context. We're happy to do that, and we'll help you walk through what we saw and what it may or may not be. So.
Yeah, I mean, if you're genuinely crypto mining off of your machine at Black Hat, whatever,
no reason to come talk to us.
Yeah, you do you hit continue and go ahead. Yay!
Story time.
It's story time.
Crank out a few here real quick.
Yeah, this is the greatest hits portion, right? So this one's fun. You want to take this one?
Yeah. So this was always an interesting thing.
This is new. This is even like freshies. This was
new.
Last
As
year.
You can see, 2019. Yeah, this was last year. We talked about it a little bit. So you get to rehear, or brand new if you weren't in Vegas. So security or something like it. So a big push for security for some other reasons that may or may not have happened in Vegas. Black Hat last year hired an outside security firm for physical security and some other aspects of the show. Well, we saw some things. Interestingly enough, this was their pamphlet or handout that you want to say that they gave to all of their crew. The problem was that it was emailed on the Black Hat network to that crew in the clear. So as you can see, all of the explanations of the shirts that our team as well as the CAs wear, the badges, telling you how to
back. This
everything
is what
you
this
could
one
ever
means.
need. So
if you want to counterfeit some stuff, here's a kit for you.
Don't sniff the Black Hat network, because that's not where you'll find it.
Yeah.
It's certainly an interesting one that, again, there's plenty of times we're going to laugh at plenty of other people through this, but we'll laugh at ourselves
too. We'll laugh at us too. So. Yeah. I also love, this is part of the document in there. It says they hack anything and everything, not maliciously, but for the fun of it. We don't need this distraction in security. And I'm like, we don't need this distraction in security. That is security for us.
That's what we're here for.
It's not a distraction. That's my job. But yeah,
for the fun.
So yeah, we again, and we actually tracked down it was the head of the security or whatever company, the third-party security company that was
educated.
Hired. We tried to educate him, is what I'll say, because then he did it again. And we like go back and be like, dude, still no. But yeah, so that was pretty funny. We if we laugh at others, we can laugh at ourselves.
Oh yeah, so this one, clear text or encrypted, basically strong passwords that were unencrypted. So you can have the longest, craziest generated password in the world, but if you're logging in with it in the clear, that's not gonna
Good try.
do you too good.
It's a
for
solid
long.
effort.
There's some other stories like that. I don't know that we have them in here. Where was that? The password or the passwords for cameras and stuff. The visual was
It's not
encrypted.
in here, but yes, that is.
Just different things like that. Again, and we always say this, and it's a catchphrase: trust but verify. Do it at home. Do a quick packet capture on your home network and see if you're seeing anything that you don't want us to see when you show up to the show.
Yeah, I will say, as far as the clear text and encrypted stuff though goes, is that like overall the amount of traffic that we have seen is the encryption has gone up steadily over the years. Like since we started tracking it, it has gone up, over the years. So that's been really, really great to see. Now, one of the things you always hear is like, use a VPN, use a VPN, use a VPN. Now, yes, you should use a VPN. Unfortunately, in this case, this VPN was just, made by a 5-year-old or something, because, that's insulting to 5-year-olds. But what it did was it passed the credentials before establishing the tunnel in the clear, and then came back and said, just so I'm clear, is this how you were... are these the credentials you were passing me? I just want to make sure I got them.
Use standards at least. Come on now.
And so that hurt.
Oh man.
Yeah, so, I'll since I talked about the VPNs, I'll take this one really quick too. So this one was one where we saw some documents coming across the network in the clear of a very sensitive nature, a significant amount of financial documents, and we're like, hey, what is the deal here? So this is one where I did go down to the class, because I was like, this is enough stuff, and it was bad enough.
Very personal.
Yeah, that I went down and talked to the guy, and he was like, and I said, hey, I'm seeing this and this, and of course it was, no, you're not, I'm using a VPN, and I said, look, I assure you that I am, and he said, no, I'm using, look, the icon, look, you can see it's green. And I said, okay, well, you have this much left on your mortgage. And he was like, what? But you can see. And I'm like, something's not right. And essentially what had happened was the VPN was connected, but he had split tunneling set up. And so some of the stuff that he was sending out wasn't going over the encrypted portion of the network. And I was like, why would you be sending this type of stuff at Black Hat? And he was like, well, my son's going to university in the fall, and I had to, do stuff for financial aid. And I'm like, well, it's all out there now. So careful.
School for free. Cool. 0 day O'Dare, same day. We have seen a little bit of this where we have seen exploits that were talked about that day then show up on the network. How long was this one? How much?
12 hours.
12 hours?
12 hours, yeah.
So there's plenty of stories that we've seen, you guys, and we get into some other stuff, I believe, here. We've got to fly, though, real quick. And you like to try things out after you learn them. Just know how to do it.
From stage to network, and trying to be actively exploited in 12 hours. So this one, we always talk about look at traffic, look at IRC traffic, look at those things. In this case, you can see, some private messages down there at the bottom from an individual saying, like, hey, do you want to essentially take your hack RF and go try it out at the Luxor later? It's not a good idea to go messing around with security at casinos. They've been doing it a lot longer than you, I assure you. They also have a very, they like a hands-on approach to security in Las Vegas, and so
don't get disappeared.
Yeah, don't get disappeared.
We also have a very good relationship with those guys too. So
good
we
team.
Snitched on you. Sorry. They do the same. So again, to this whole extent, this one specifically, new attacks at Black Hat and then pointing them at public internet is too damn high. So again, if you learn stuff, it's one thing that we see it on the network. Again, if we're seeing it 12 hours later as an O-Day, it's one thing. Specifically, what we were talking about there, people were attacking a police precinct. I think it was their hometown or something we looked into.
This one was Europe, but there is another one. This is just an
okay.
example of one. But this one was Europe, where we had to go down. And you can see, like, when we pull all of our stuff together, we know what classroom you're in. There's a little cookie monster getting pointed to on the bottom. We knew the attack was coming from that classroom. We had to go in and say, hey, guys, like, crime is still illegal, even at Black Hat. So don't target the public internet.
We can't save you.
But yeah, we did see something last year, or maybe the year prior, I can't remember, it's all blending together at this point, but where an individual learned how to use a new tool in a classroom and then for whatever reason decided to target the police department for their hometown. Everybody needs a hobby, but maybe not that one.
Life lessons. I forgot this one. So this was London, right? And they was it a seat change? I don't remember off the top. It was so a seat change, basically all done through clear email. That basically I could have gone and got on the plane for this person.
Well, yeah, that's what was interesting about it, is the stuff that's included in the email was enough information that we could have gone and made changes, including changing their flight. So we could say, never mind, I'm not going, which is why we call this one You're Staying. And speaking of tickets,
yes,
we see other stuff come across the network too, like people are going sightseeing while they're in there. So in this case, we saw the QR codes or barcodes come across for somebody's planned trip a couple of days later to go to the London Eye. Now we could have grabbed those, grabbed that, taken that, and yeah, we've been so romantic.
Cute.
Yeah, where were you on that one?
We should have. Why didn't we?
Whatever. This is legitimately that in the middle there is the list of folders that this guy had in his inbox. So, and you can see a small snippet over there on the right hand side of the types of things that these folders were named. So when you're doing your email in the clear and we see this type of stuff, not only do we have the current emails that you're sending or whatever, but we also have, you know, the list of the way that you sort those. And there was a lot of personally identifiable stuff or different names, relationships or companies that this individual worked with. If you were planning to attack this person or their company,
you know where to go.
Pretext that you could build with a social engineering campaign would be just ridiculous.
BigFix or Big Broken. This has always been one of my funnest. So BigFix, and I think this we found out later this wasn't IBM's fault, but basically, long story short, another security firm was using BigFix as a tool internally. The problem being that when their machines phoned home over the internet to their BigFix device, it was all in the clear. So basically, any kind of information that you needed on that machine was full. Software versions, OS version, patches.
The reconnaissance part of your attack.
The recon was done. You just they sent
it's
it
already
to
there.
you. So,
it's there for you.
That has come back up, and interestingly enough, they disagreed with us, and then we sent them some more stuff, and I never heard back.
we never heard. They were like, we didn't do that. And we were like, again, PCAP. So.
Yeah, that was interesting. So.
This one is, a Corporatejira instance, just public to the internet. Again, uses HTTP, no TLS, just bam, out there, everything.
Unique ID and tokens are all in the clear. You can grab
there.
that and get in, do whatever you need to.
Your Jira is my Jira.
And again, just could be reconnaissance. You don't have to change anything. A couple more. This is the Singapore. So basically, long story short, again, we had malware that we thought hit registration. It got there, but basically was not for what it was intended. They were trying to run PowerShell and invoke a few other things.
Which we didn't let them. But we were curious, right? Like what it was so clearly, like we mitigated this. What would have happened if this would have gone? And so we put it in, a sandbox again, and then we said, let's see what it does. This is what it does. Sends Pop3 Spam, Monero crypto miner, lateral port scanning, connects to 10,000 external hosts.
Basically scanned every RFC 1918 address just to see what was
trying to dump creds, and then did ransomware on top of it. This was the noisiest, most absurd piece of malware that we've ever seen. And I was like, if you don't get caught, or if you don't catch this malware, you deserve to be owned.
Yes.
And then finally, we love devices, right? We do actually see physical devices that get left around the space. The device on the left is one that we've seen in Vegas deployed in the past, and multiple of these devices get left around where somebody's basically just setting something up to de-auth the wireless traffic. We go around, we find them, and I know it only costs a couple bucks for that, but free hardware, if it's free, it's me. I'm going to take it.
It's ours.
And then, but we think that that's adorable because you bring that, and what we bring is stuff like that on the right. Do you want to explain what that is really quick?
That's the cactus. So the Wi-Fi cactus and our good buddy Dark Matter that brings that. I'm sure a lot of people know about the project, but a whole bunch of Wi-Fi pineapples basically working together to scan every channel all the time and see what you crazies are doing. So
yeah, it's so you bring your devices, we bring our devices. It's cute. And if you leave them around, they're like,
it was a 700 milliamp hour battery, and Dark Matter used to carry a car battery. So.
But that's it. That's the greatest hits and holy cows.
Thanks, guys. We miss you and hope to see you all soon.
Yeah, I hope to see you guys soon.